Classes in session. Deep breath. Guys, welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session. Look at who I have with me. I don't even know if I have a good introduction. I'm sweating. And my neck hurts a little bit. It's a lot. Is your hair okay?
My hair's good.
Are you
Hair's
sure?
Good. Hair's good. I washed it for you.
God, listen, you do what you have to do. That is epic. The fact that you live in Toronto, you're from Toronto, and I've never seen you. I said this to my friends, and they're like, you think we would have seen her hair?
You think you would have passed me on the street?
Somewhere.
Come on.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me. To be honest, I don't know where to start. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. Because everybody's got to start.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I'm a teacher. I have a lot of puns. My very first class that I ever taught was, I was doing my practice teaching with the kids, and it was an English class. I'm not an English teacher.
Okay.
And I walked in there, and I was supposed to be doing a poetry unit. And so the teacher said, here, poetry. And I'm like, oh my God, you're going to give me what, grade 10 poetry?
Oh, geez.
It's going to go badly. And I used Everybody's Got a Story.
No way.
So I printed off the lyrics. I made them listen to the song. We listened to it. We did the metaphor, simile, all of that kind of stuff. And then we really got to the aspect of Everybody's Got a Story. And I had these kids telling nice personal stories about important things that made them who they are. That was my very first teaching.
I love that.
My very first teaching moment.
Look at me.
Look at you.
Look at me contributing to the edification
all
of the young
of
people.
Those great.
Come on.
So you've been in the business since when?
I have been in the music business formally since I was 15, 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like 10 years ago.
Like a scant 5-6 years ago.
So short of a time. And for that business, I want to talk about you being an artist. I want to talk about you being in the business because those are two very different things. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why does she have to sit here?
I don't know. I thought she was with you.
All right. Let's talk about the artistry side of it first. Did you know at 15 years old, were you like, this is who I am?
Yes. I knew when I was little. When you're doing things for validation from adults, I knew that I was like good enough at it that adults were interested.
Let's go into deep dive about the validation from adults. I think we're going to shift this entire thing.
This just became a completely different interview. Yeah.
So you would stand up, you would sing, people would clap, and you. Right?
Yeah, and I was like, people like this. I enjoy doing it. And I knew it was what I wanted to do professionally easily by the time I was, like 9, 10.
And when you say professionally, how did you even conceptualize that at 9 or 10? Just that you see people on TV. And
I'd be like, I want to do that. I didn't know what path I was going to take. I didn't know how I was going to, because I was an only child. I grew up a very middle class, But really? Yeah. So, I had both my parents were working parents. I had no connections in the business. I didn't know anybody. Until, much later.
Right.
And I just did what was available to me at the time. And my parents were great. They were really supportive. They were very, very, attuned to my abilities, and they really made sure to go out of their way. They used what money they had to get me lessons and whatever it was that I needed at the time. So they were great. They weren't pushy, but they were really, really supportive. And I was great. I was lucky. I had a lot of great teachers. I had great teachers.
Right. Well, and I think, music teachers or teachers in general?
Music teachers especially,
mm-hmm.
but teachers in general who guided me, even the teachers who guided me in areas that weren't musical
mm-hmm.
or that weren't arts related were so important. My English teacher was a huge part of my development. My history teacher was a huge part of my
development.
As we are.
I understand.
I'm not just sucking up.
Well, I asked that question because it's like, you possess, and it's gonna seem like sucking up, but I'm not sucking up.
No, it's okay.
There is something truly authentic about your music, and I think that kind of authenticity, and throughout the years that I've been listening to you, but that kind of authenticity either has to be really hard fought for, meaning you have to go through hell and back, or you have, and what sounds like that lovely foundation of people who supported you, who bigged you up, who helped you, who, mm-hmm. nobody ever looked at you and goes, you want to be a singer? Don't be ridiculous. Did anybody say that?
Yeah. No, nobody said that. But the the sort of trials and tribulations of being in the music business for me came later. Ironically, they came after I had already had a significant and substantial amount of success.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm really upset about that.
But initially,
I'm not sure who I have to call.
It's all right. It's okay now. But it's all over now.
It's not okay for everybody. Just so you know.
But initially I was, initially I was just like, why wouldn't I do this? This is great.
You know what? And there's something, like I said, there's something incredibly powerful and authentic about that. Did you feel like I've been around I'm not musical in any way. I've been around the music business in different ways and I don't love it. There's aspects of it I'm like, and plus I'm a teacher, so I like structure and timing, and nobody's on time in this business. Where's the sound guy?
Listen, I was here when you got here.
You were. You were actually early. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're saying. I'm a Virgo.
Promoter's not there. The sound guy not. Where's the lighting guy? There's no light. Anyways, that's beside the point. But the idea that did you feel like you could hold on to when you stepped into this business? Could you hold on to authentically who you were, or were you just sort of coming into it, or did you feel pressured?
Oh, no. Listen, my mother in particular, my mom is like, I don't know about you, but my mom is like the voice in my head all the time. And I could call her anytime, any hour of any day. And so she was like, you know who you are. I always knew who I was. And I think that was, it's funny, when the whole Me Too thing happened a few years ago, my mother, this was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Right. My mom called me, even as an adult, my mom called me and she was like, is there anything I need to know? And she was like, and don't.
Is there anything we need?
And I was like, who else? No. I was like, if there was anything to know, you'd know. Like, how would you not know? Right. That's the kind of foundation that I had. So, and it saved me so many times, because so many times, not just in the entertainment business, but particularly in the entertainment business, particularly as a young woman in the entertainment business, you find yourself alone a lot in rooms with people you don't know, many of whom are men. And it was, for me, I think that was what saved me, was everybody knew that I was, at least outwardly, pretty self-confident, but I had this great foundation behind me. So they knew there were people like on the other side of the door. Right. So they knew somebody's going to know.
So how old were you when you were starting to be in those rooms? Those I know that when you're young, you'd go perform and stuff, but when you're in those rooms with people that could kind of, or you would feel like maybe that could make or break, how old were you at that point?
I mean, I was really young. I was, from the time I was, say, 15 until I was 18, 19, my parents were there with me because they sort of had to be. But then from then on, I was kind of on my own. But it's so funny. I look at like pictures and things that I did when I was really young. And my mother went completely nuts. From the time I was about like 19 till I was in my mid-20s, my mother was just like, she was really beside herself. And I see now why, because I was 19, but I looked like I was like 11. You don't feel that way when you're 19 or 20. You think like, I'm a woman.
I have everything.
I'm a woman of the world. I know everything. There's nothing nobody can do. Right. But I look back now and I'm like, oh man, how, like, I got in a van with like a bunch of guys. I was like 17. Well,
Kid, she never did that.
I'm not advising this. I'm just saying.
No, I talk about those stories a lot, actually, just in general. But you were in such a powerful and vulnerable place that I just feel like, and obviously we see a lot of stuff in the music business coming to a sort of fruition now. And you just see all of that happening, to be able to have the foundation to say, I'm out, or to say, my mom's out on the other side of the door. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what led to, and we're going to get to, so you do one killer album, you do another killer album, and then you leave us. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So what? You walk me through it. I've read stuff. I've heard, you know what I mean? You walk me through what happened.
It's a lot less.
We're going to get some names, and I'm going to just go make some calls. I have a bit of a following now.
She's brass knuckles in her bag.
Listen.
So I finished my third record, Everybody's Got a Story. We came off the road. We came off the road in 2002. And it was really the first time that I had taken any time since I had been working solid since I was like 16, 17. Right. And I just reevaluated the entire relationship with my manager, who I had up until that point, since I was 15. And there were a lot of things about the relationship that were not working business wise, on a professional level. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do to fire him.
Right.
But so I decided, this is it. I'm going to go in a new direction, completely new direction.
So you're signed with the label.
I signed with the label. I was with Sony at the time.
Sony at the time.
Yeah.
And then that was your manager.
That was my manager.
And just for myself and everybody listening,
yeah,
those are separate entities.
They are. But in my case, there was a lot of intertwining. There was a lot of, we had the same this, same that, same lawyer, same this, same everything.
Right.
And which happens a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens as much anymore, but it did. So it made extricating myself really, really hard. And it was just really a really bad breakup. It was like when you have a really bad divorce, and it became very contentious.
Listen,
and
I walked down the aisle.
You walked down. I had nobody there to sing "Fall from Grace" for me.
We'll talk about that later. So you had a bad breakup.
I had a bad breakup,
and then you have to let go of it all.
Well, I kept trying, but it became this unrelenting just campaign of legal harassment. And it went on and on and on. And it really went on for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Which people find really hard to believe, but I'm here to tell you it is possible. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the first person that it's happened to. Right. It happens. I don't know if it happens as much anymore, but and it just really took a long time to resolve itself. And in that time you become, at least I became very conscious of not wanting to be like the girl from Trouble. Like everywhere I went, I was kind of like, well, I can't really start anything new because I've got this anvil that I'm carrying around with me. So it became sort of a chronic distraction to everything I did. I worked a little bit. We did a few sort of live shows here and there, but starting a record, starting a new label relationship became really, really hard.
So you couldn't stay with Sony under this kind of interwoven.
It was complicated. Yeah.
So you would have had to be signed somewhere else, and then that was taken. Oh, yeah. Well. And that makes a little bit more sense. I guess I didn't understand because I always knew it was a manager issue, but I didn't understand how interwoven it was.
Yeah, it was. Right. It was really, really just a lot of overlap. There were a lot of overlapping relationships between labels and production companies, and I think people the downside of it was that I really, as I said, it became a chronic distraction. And I realized early on, as well-intentioned as my parents were, and and that is another huge learning curve, that as well-intentioned as my parents were, you don't know what you don't know. And as much as you're trying to be helpful and provide guidance and get the best people, to surround your kid, it was really, they really thought they were doing the best for me. I thought I was doing the best for me. And for a long time it worked out. And the truth is, I don't have I did for a while have real kind of, not bitterness, but I was really upset about it. But I'm not anymore, because I realized that about halfway through the whole ordeal, I realized it was truly the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that.
It really was, because it forced me to develop into the person I was always supposed to be all along. When you have a lot of success very early, I think it kind of stunts you, because you are trapped in sort of, as all of your peers move forward and develop life skills and coping skills and learn how to cope with, the slings and arrows that life brings. Sure. You're not dealing with any of that stuff. You're not paying your own bills. You're not, you're not dealing with the day-to-day kind of stuff. And once all of the infrastructure that springs up around you fell away, I really stepped into myself, and it became this sort of point of pride. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this on my own.
Right.
And it made me aware that I was a lot more capable than I had previously thought, because it becomes this kind of like, oh, you do it, I can't do it, I don't know, I can't go out there, right? And it really strips you of a lot of your confidence. Mm-hmm. Even though you are outwardly very confident, you're very successful, it really inwardly strips you of a lot of that.
I feel like that's what a lot of people talk about. They talk about it more when it comes to actors, I think, because a lot of actors hit younger, but young singers as well, where you're frozen. I've heard where you get frozen at that age, right? I became famous at 19. I never got older than 19. That's right. I never had to, right? And that's insanely powerful. And I think that's true, oddly, for everybody, because I know that we've joked, and I think you do owe me an apology. I think Fall from Grace really let me down in that first marriage. However, having something pulled out from under you, whatever that thing is, because there's so many people that have gone through huge job losses, losing people, like divorces, all of those things. But when the earth literally feels like it's shook and you're like, oh, this is how I'm gonna die. Like I'm physically can't take another step. And when you finally figure out how to take that step, you're like, oh, all of that terrible stuff was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yep.
You know, all of it.
Mhm.
I at whatever I was, 44, and now at 49, I'm like more who I am. I never could have done TikTok. I never would have done any of it had that not been shook.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure that out about 5 years in, and then you could kind of like, I mean, you're an artist. So being an artist, I don't think you stopped doing that, or did that business kind of, I don't want to say crush, but it must have been a weight during that break of time.
It initially was, but then I really quickly realized, because it's funny. I know, like on my Instagram, it says like artist under your like bio thing.
Mm.
I have a real thing about that word, because I think like, artist, really? Picasso was an artist. I make up songs in my pajamas. Like, I'm like, really?
Picasso was a little crazy.
That's true. We
You
have that
make
in
up
common.
you make up. So wait a minute. Look, we got to go back to the getting adults' attention, and now we're going to talk about what you don't, because you like kind of minimize what you do.
Well, I guess I don't think of it as high art. You know, I realize it has value. I understand that it is, that you have to be, but I never really thought of myself up until this point as a creative person. I think I always had a little bit of imposter syndrome, where I kind of thought of myself as a dilettante who sang, which sounds weird because it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. It's the only thing I was really, really good at. But I think a lot of creative people have that. I think you're always walking around like, oh man, any minute now I'm about to be found out. Yeah.
So on your first 3 albums, how much writing were you doing?
Probably on the first record it was about half, and the second record it was a little more than half. The third record it was like all the songs were co-written. So that was another point of
creative part.
I was, but I was doing it. I was relying heavily on other people,
right?
And I was doing it really to fulfill I had a publishing deal, so I was doing it to like fulfill a quota.
Sure.
It was something that was I never thought of myself as someone who was driven in the morning to wake up and write songs. And I knew people who were I knew people who were not doing the other side of it. So I knew people who were not performers, who were great, gifted songwriters. And I thought, I'm not really in their league. And I'm still not, but one of the things I realized was that my contribution as a songwriter had value, because without it, the records don't have, it's just like, what you do has value, because without your voice behind it, it doesn't really have a sense of identity. Right. And that's what was giving the records their whole kind of bloom, their whole sense of identity. So that was a big thing. But I was lucky. I realized that earlier in the process than I realized that it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. I was creative all the way through the process. Nice. It was just people weren't hearing it.
Right.
I didn't have any outlet for it.
Right. It's so incredible to understand how you view yourself and then how that's transformed. But this album, the last album, right? Not a love song, by the way, is my favorite. This last album, it was all you.
This last album was all me, and it started out. I could have
helped if you know.
I'll call you for the next one.
I'm just saying, there could have been a small rapping part, like
a triangle solo.
A triangle. Just 1 or 2 hits. That's all I'm asking, Amanda. The bar's not high. So you wrote this whole thing.
Yeah, wrote the whole thing, and it took a long time, because I wrote it over a long period of time, and we made it over a long period of time because I didn't have anything else to do. So I was sort of like, well, we can take our time with this. And eventually it got to a point where I was like, well, I'm not making this for a label. Nobody's waiting for it. My fans, I have stopped waiting for it. Nobody knows where I am.
I disagree.
Actually, I have to say,
we were all waiting.
That really did shock me when I came back, how one of the things that really surprised me, honestly, is how meaningful, songs like Dark Horse and Fall from Grace, all those records had been to people. Like they really were, they had marked momentous occasions in their lives with them. They had passed the love of the songs onto their kids, and were bringing their kids to the shows now. That to me was kind of, because when you're in it, you don't really, I don't think you realize it.
You just thought, I'm famous for now,
Yeah,
and it
it's
will
like,
go away. And
I didn't even think
maybe-
about that. I just sort of thought like,
Just-
the record is, my thing was always like, how is the record doing? Is the record doing well? Is the record, are we getting to travel to other places? Are we getting to do shows in front of new audiences? We were traveling a lot. So I didn't have really the time to absorb the kind of connection that the people really had with the music.
Mhm.
It was always great. You go to like a place like Japan and people are singing the lyrics and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they know these words. But it didn't really register with me as like a 22 or 23-year-old that like they're doing that because it's meaningful to them.
Yeah.
You know?
And so now you have a greater appreciation of that. You
Huge.
can see that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What's your favorite song of all time?
Of mine?
No, anybody's.
Anybody's?
Anybody's.
I can't tell you because I'm about to record it.
Gosh.
I'm about to record it. And
Just whisper it. I won't.
it's a great song, and it's a song. The story behind it is fantastic, and I can't tell you yet, but I promise I'll come back and tell you. I will.
Okay.
I will.
Okay.
And it's a song that I always wanted to record, and it actually got left off the first record. I didn't demo it, but it was a song I fought to get on the first record, and I lost the fight to get it on the first record, and I'm going to get to record it now in a way that's so much better, and I'm so excited about it.
I didn't even know I was
on the
gonna
worst.
touch onto that.
I'm the worst.
Okay, favorite song you've written.
Favorite song I've written?
And I know as an artist, what would you call yourself then? If you never called yourself, would it be performer?
Performer, yeah.
Okay, is that where you feel the most you on stage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, performer, singer, I don't know. Singer, musical act.
Music.
Ventriloquist dummy. I don't know.
Somebody throw her some balls to juggle.
Exactly.
Okay,
Favorite song
you
of
wrote?
mine. Favorite song that I've written.
This is the
This
stumper.
is really hard.
Right here.
I really I love singing If I Didn't Have You, which is off the second record. It's a ballad.
Yep.
Because that is a song that has a lot of meaning for me. It's a song.
Tell.
Well, it's a love song.
Yeah.
It grew out of another song. The guy I wrote it with, Eric Bazillion, he's the guy who wrote "What If God Was One of Us."
Stranger on a Bus.
There you go. And he had this song sort of half written lying around, and he brought it in, and I loved it. And I was like, we have to do something with this. And it wound up being a song that we wound up touring with. And ironically, today is the day that she died. We wound up touring with Whitney Houston.
Oh.
And it's been 13 years.
That.
Yeah,
Wow.
13 years ago today. And she was, somebody I grew up, every singer
Sure.
I grew up with her posters on my
Whitney
wall. So
friggin'
to be
Houston.
on the tour was like
What?
unbelievable. And I didn't care, all I wanted to do was watch her show every night.
Sure.
So we were on the road for a few months with them. And on the sort of second to last night of the tour, we were in Germany. And that song, If I Didn't Have You, it starts with a whistle.
Mm.
But it's very hard to replicate a whistle live.
Yeah.
So the whistle's on tape. So every night I would sort of turn around and drink some water. And on this particular night, I turned back, and she was standing right
Stop
behind
it
me.
right now.
Her and Bobby Brown. And she came out, and
I'd pass out.
I almost did. And I could feel like the blood rushing from my head to my feet.
Did all the water go from your
Yeah,
mouth?
I was just like, and she took my mic and she introduced me and thanked me she said, Amanda Martin,
Sure.
thank you for being on the road. And the audience applauded. She put the mic on the stand and she turned to hug me. And as she leaned in to hug me, she said, God damn, I love this song.
Oh.
And it was a song that I had written.
Oh, wow.
And it was, to me, to hear her say that she loved the song that I knew that I had written, and not just, it would have been meaningful enough if she had said like, oh, I like the way you sing that song.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
nice. But it was like, to hear her say that she loved the song. So that song to me, every time I sing that song, I think about that.
And you didn't think in that moment you were an artist? Picasso, Amanda Marshall, Whitney Houston just said it.
All right.
You should have had a light bulb moment at that moment. What is the hardest part about being in the industry, being like whatever, being who you are? Like in this, because I can tell you bad teacher stories. What's the part where you're like, ugh, that thing?
I think, and maybe I'm alone in this, but I think the greatest lesson that I have learned is that you really have to remember not to take yourself seriously. Like, relax. Like, we're not curing cancer. This is music.
Sure.
And it's a universal language that allows us to go out in front of a wide audience if you're lucky. And you get to travel and you get to meet people from all over the world who connect for whatever reason. And I think when I say you have to remember not to take it personally, I walk into meet and greets all the time, and people are overwhelmed. And I know that feeling. I've met people, I've been starstruck. I've been overwhelmed.
You should have seen it earlier.
I've met people.
It's embarrassing.
Oh my God.
It was too.
But I've met people whose work is meaningful to me. But I also know that it's about the work. It's not so much about me. And I think if you get in your head too much with it, I think that messes you up.
I think it is about, I get what you're saying, because you're trying to say, listen, there's no sort of hierarchical standing here. But I think it is about you specifically. I think there's a lot of artists out there where that connection isn't as apparent. But I think the way that you sing your music, I would argue that every single fan would disagree with what you said.
Well, I mean, certainly
I even have kids, students now, 16 years old. They knew that I was coming to do this, and I play a little bit of your music, and I'd hear them humming it. 16 years old, humming it down. Joe, that song was really, can we listen to it again? But there's I still go back to, and the people that I'm drawn to, there's an authenticity about the way you bring it to light that makes it about you. I understand, like, it's not, but do you struggle with criticism?
I used to.
Who's criticizing?
No, I used to. It used to really wound me. I used to get really, and I hate even saying that out loud because I'm somebody who's like, nah, it didn't bother me.
Right.
That's fine. But it really used to bother me. And it doesn't so much anymore. I honestly, and I'm not saying this out of ego. I haven't read a lot of criticism recently. Sure. So maybe that's why. Yeah. But it used to really really bother me. But I think the older you get, the more you start to realize that's not really about you either. Like if you buy into the hype, if you buy into the really greats, that's why I don't read reviews. Right. People tell me about them, and I'm always thrilled. Like if somebody liked the show, or if people like the songs, but if you buy into all that, you got to buy into this other stuff too. And I kind of feel like,
Do you think that's an element, like we're a very similar age? I feel like you get to a certain age and you really do wish you could transfer it back to when you were 20. Do you think that's something about our age and what we've gone through and now perspective? Do you think anybody who's 20 could possibly understand that?
No. No, I mean, and that's natural. You can't, like, you shouldn't. You should, like, criticism should bother you in your 20s. And, I think it's a natural part of your development. I mean, one of the things that I really, and I don't know why, I'll tell you, actually, I do know why. I'll tell you why.
I'm excited. Straight up there with the philosophy
and I'm embarrassed.
Psychology stuff.
I'm embarrassed to admit how long this took, but it took till I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And it was during that period that when I was sort of laying fallow, I wasn't really doing anything.
Pause. What word did you just use?
Oh, fallow. I was laying fallow. Like when crops, when they lay fallow, you lay the field fallow. Come on, man, you're a teacher.
Listen, I don't know everything. You sound like the kids that asked me to explain how a battery works.
That's how a battery works? Wait, it's a whole different interview now. There's things I need to know.
Get us an orange.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that been done. Okay, so
so when I was doing nothing, I was laying fallow. And somebody called me. Somebody found who my agent. I still had an agent, and somebody called my agent, and they wanted me to do something, and I didn't want to do it. And previous to this, I would have had like a manager or somebody who could say no. But I didn't. I didn't have any people. So I was on the phone with my dad one day, and I was telling him about it, and I was like, oh my God. And I think they gave them my email, and I think I got an email, and now I don't know what to do. What should I do? Who am I going to have called? Somebody has to call them back. And there was like silence on the other end of the phone. My dad, I said, are you still there? My dad said, what the hell is the matter with you? And I said,
parents are the best.
I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you're like 31. Pick up the phone. Like, call them so scared of?
Right.
And like in that moment, I was like, oh right, yeah. Like what am I doing? Why am I like this? And it had seeped into every area of my life. Now, some of that is some of that is valuable, some of that is protective,
Sure.
some of that is like be aware of your surroundings,
Mhm.
and right. Some of it comes from bad experiences, but a lot of it is just people telling you that you are, like, oh my God, oh no, we'll do that for you. You shouldn't have to do
Right.
that. Right. And once you get past that and you kind of let that go, it's not so scary. It's not that big of a deal.
Do you think
You know?
saying no is a problem to
Uh
people
Not
who
now.
think? Yeah. Well, we don't listen.
Yeah,
We
but it
don't
used to
care.
be.
I'll say no to everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, but do you think it's also a problem to say no back in the day because there's an element of people like I think women, and I really want to talk to you about the difference about being a woman in this industry and a woman in life in general right now. But do you think that we're taught very, very young to be cooperative, to be a team player, to be, I'm going to probably take a guess, even though I don't know even more of that story, with your manager. And there was this sort of dependent relationship that went on
Mm-hmm.
that would have been very comforting
Mm-hmm.
and very rational for you to step into.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, today it's easy, but do you look back and go, there was a lot of things when I was 25 that I really didn't want to do, but I just did them.
Uh, no, I mean, I can't say there were a lot of things I didn't want to do that I did, or that anybody forced me to do things. I will say that there were times when things were explained to me in a way that made it seem like a really good idea. And then you internalize that and you think, this is a great idea. I should do this.
Right, right.
And because why? Because it was my idea. It wasn't really your idea. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So there was some of that. And some of it is just that you do the best you can. And listen, I'm not here to. I think most of the people, I've been very lucky. Most of the people I have come in contact with throughout my career have done the best they could.
Sure.
People are doing the best they can, and I think for the most part, people make the decisions for the most part that they think, like we're all in this together and we're all on a team and we're trying to do the best we can to do what we think in this moment is going to be best for you. Um, but I also think that it's really, really easy to fall into a mindset where people are doing things for you all the time.
Right.
And then you get the added bonus of that whole passive aggressive thing. It was like, well, it wasn't me. It was, it was my agent, it was my manager, it was him, and that makes you, it makes you a bad leader. It makes you a bad leader because a leader, within the confines of whether you're fronting a band, whether you're fronting a management company, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
that, it is the ability to, number one, say like, I don't know, maybe we should ask someone who knows,
Mm-hmm.
or, well, it's not really me. You have to talk to so-and-so.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
People who fear sort of, and it doesn't have to be like a big confrontation. I don't want to answer that question, or no, I'm good. I don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
Or no, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. But when you're 25, it's really hard. It's a lot easier to be like, well, you can talk to my manager and he'll work it out. Yeah.
I think that you just tapped on something that's so powerful. The idea that if you want to be a good leader, you have to learn to do the hard things. If you're not going to do the hard things, you're not going to ever move from that place that you started in.
Yeah.
Right. And until I think everybody, until you're shoved into the hard things, who the heck wants to do them?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to do them. If I could get somebody, look, my mortgage is coming up. I'm like, who can I
find?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to do the hard things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have the hard conversations. I don't want to fight a speeding, like just anything. If I could avoid it, I would absolutely. And I think that's, funnily enough, going back to those codependent relationships that I think we all find ourselves, whether it's friends, whether it's a partner, whether it's a man, it doesn't matter. You offshoot something. And when that relationship is going to end, I wonder how much we're really fearful of losing that person.
Yeah.
Or losing the person that dealt with the mortgage or whatever
Yeah,
the
the
thing
thing.
is.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing
Yeah.
is, right? Because I think we get very comfortable in that, and there's a level, there's a pretense of safety,
Mhm.
and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy.
And I think also when you're, one of the big things for me was when you're younger, you think you're the only person this has ever happened to, and that's you're the only person who's going through this. You have no frame of reference, and it's not until you get to be a little older and you look back and you realize, like, everybody's dealing with the same thing.
Person.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, shifting into, you're jumping back in, you have a new album, you've been on tour, you're writing a new single, you can't talk about. But this is a brave new world right now because of social media.
Mm.
How does that feel for somebody who, you know, in the late 80s, the 90s, and that's a whole different genre,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody knew anything about you. Little blurbs in like something, Entertainment Tonight or something,
Yep.
but not like now, right? So how do you feel about that? I know
it's really funny that you're here today because we've been talking. I've spent my afternoon talking about this, about social media. You know, initially thought thought it was, you're right. I did not initially recognize when I first came back into sort of the public eye. It was tricky because I was like, well, I'm a really private person and I don't really want that to change. And I want to be able to sort of have a meaningful relationship with the people who like the work that I'm doing. And you also want to be able to communicate with those people, but I don't really want to communicate with them in a way that's like too personal. And there's also this weird like self-protection thing that kicks in because you're worried about your own sort of safety and security. What I love about it is the creative aspect of it.
Mhm.
I think it is an enormously valuable tool. And if you're not on stage, you can be doing something that is incredibly satisfying and creative and meaningful to people, which is exactly what this is. You know what I mean? I think it is it's so valuable and so great that so many people are able to be creative and directly connected to, this sounds weird, but directly connected to an audience.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
That part really excites me. I love that.
And I think directly and nobody's, and I don't know how it works for obviously other celebrities and other artists, but like there's no intermediary, or there doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so for an average person who's never been on stage, who's never done this and never picks up, you know, their video camera, you could be turned into a star like the next day.
Yeah.
Just because you resonate. So the gatekeeper aspect has kind of gone.
Yeah.
Like it's gone for lots of different reasons, but this has really pushed it into overdrive,
Yeah.
right?
And at the beginning, I was really like, I miss the gatekeeper. Can we bring the gatekeeper back? Because I will admit, I don't know if you feel this way, but like sometimes you feel like you've had a relationship with somebody, whether it's a musician or whoever, and then through the power of social media, you start to realize, oh, I wish I knew less. I would like to know less. Is there any way I could go back to knowing less? Because I was happy with less.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, you don't want to, your heroes, you want to.
Yeah. I'm like,
don't.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No, just stop. Yeah. But I think it's funny. I think you're right. Because I think, but what it does is it really equalizes the playing field.
Yes.
It allows people, average people, to go, oh, they can step in it just as easily as I can.
Yeah,
now, when you step into it, you know, Entertainment Tonight reports on it, but it's different. I get that. And so the tidal wave that you would face, do you ever find that people with social media, and I know that you probably post a lot, but aren't necessarily, you know, interacting as much, fan expectation of you? Do you find it's risen?
In terms of what I'm posting,
or how often how often you're posting, or if you'll interact at all, or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
You might use it in a different way.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I don't. Yeah, it is a good question. I don't really know. It's funny because I'm thinking about this a lot lately. I don't know what people's expectations are, honestly, for my interactions on social media. I think people come into they come onto your channels with a certain, especially when you've been away, like I have, they have sort of a predetermined expectation, their own expectation of what they think they're going to find.
Yeah.
And that used to really kind of make me uh, feel very self-conscious, because I used to think I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to make you know, it's like it that's the thing that celebrity does anyway, is that every room you walk into, people already feel like they know something about you. Right?
Yeah.
So social media is sort of like a bigger version of that room. So in the beginning, I think I was like, well, I really don't want to disappoint anybody. But what I have found is the more the more authentically yourself you are, the more people immediately recognize that. And the people who will really gravitate towards you, they really gravitate towards you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they will share that with their friends and say, oh, oh, this is so me. This is so us. This, whatever it is, whether you're resharing a joke or you're telling them about a piece of yourself. I think people really, really, they can tell the difference between, which sounds weird because social media is all fake, right? But I think, I think
Not
people,
mine.
not yours. But I think people can tell. But I do think people can tell the difference between like what is real and what
Yes.
is, what's authentic and what isn't authentic. Real and fake, maybe. Yeah.
Do you think that's getting back to, so going back to music, do you think it's shifting sort of a sense of music back to recorded off the floor? You're not going to get 18 takes. I mean this metaphorically, as maybe a little bit literally.
I need 18
Yeah.
takes.
But you know what I mean? Like we know there's so much production that
Mhm.
can go into it, and you get to that live show and you're like, that's not the album I heard, And so do you think it's forcing a more authentic, like Queen did everything live off the floor. We do it in a take. That's what we record. Let's have a nice day. That's it. Do you think it's forcing more of that?
More? Yes. All? No. I think it's forcing some. And I think that I'm constantly shocked by anybody younger than me who plays an instrument, because I'm like, wow, you learned to play an instrument. Good for you.
Right.
Like, really, you're not just pressing buttons. You're not just in Pro Tools. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm constantly surprised that the enduring power of the learning process. People are really, they want to learn how to play piano. They want to learn how to play instruments. And I think that is a testament to the fact that kids crave that kind of tactile thing.
Absolutely.
They really do want something to bang on,
Yeah.
and, right? Make noise. Yeah, I mean, it's not forcing everybody to do it. It's not stamping out automated production
Right.
in music. I am all for a healthy mix of the two. I think if you it's, to me, it's the same as anything else. It's the same as editing or photoshopping your pictures. If it's a producer said to me once, this was in the 90s, it was when Nothing Compares to You, Sinead O'Connor, came out. And we were riding in his car one day. And he said, the song came on the radio. And he said, this vocal take is like an unphotoshopped magazine cover. He was like, and I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the reason it's so gripping is because it's imperfect. Right? And if they had auto-tuned the take, it would have been perfect, but it wouldn't be real.
Which is why people, whenever I buy an album, right, and the live version is always the version you're like, oh my god, you forgot your own line, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And you let the people sing it, or you mess up, or you start on the wrong note or in the wrong key or whatever. And that's, in my head, that's what people, I feel like, are a little bit more authentically drawn to, because you're right, it's the imperfections that make it interesting, that make it compelling, and that make it human. And the more human it is, I just feel like,
yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I believe very strongly, every show that we do, something has to be different. Every show that we do, I do something. And whether it's an improvisational, whether we're mashing up a song, I do that a lot, where I'm very kind of off the cuff and I'll start singing another song in the middle of a song. But there always has to be something different, because to me, one of the people that that really I sort of stole that from was Prince. Prince was a guy who had that innate ability. He could do anything, he could play anything, he could sing anything. But you always knew when you were going to see him live. And I was lucky enough to see him live a bunch of times. And you always knew when you were going to see him live that it was just for you. Like that night was just for that audience, right? And you were going to tell your friends about it. And now people can record it on their phones and they can show their friends. But it was so it was special because it was a one-off. Right. You were never going to get to see that again.
There you go. Does that drive you crazy at concerts?
No,
not watching, just filming.
No, but it was weird when we first came back, and I started touring. I was shocked at the number of people who would like feel comfortable walking up to the edge of the stage with or as close as they could get, like with their phones, like in the middle of the show, like, hey, can you say hi to my like what? This is what I'm singing. I'm in the middle of it.
We'd like to bring back some boundaries.
Yeah. What is happening now?
Yeah.
Can we take a selfie?
Yeah.
What? I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. Expectations have shifted.
Yeah. But I think that's also because a lot of people are used to watching things on a screen now. So I think it takes people a minute to adjust. Like, no. This is actually happening like here.
This is in real time.
Yeah.
Don't respond like that. Now I would say, well, look, now she's telling us 5 more minutes. I asked her not to come. Well, she's sitting over here watching us. Now she said 5 more minutes. Fine. I have a big question for you. 5 minutes. We're in a very unique moment in time, I think. Politically, socially. A lot of your music, if not all, actually, very much focused on relationships, very much focused on love or what. Very, that kind of situation. You've never, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm really going to stick my foot in it, but you've never really jumped into the politics, or I've never really heard you speak on it in any way, shape, or form. Is that purposeful? Is that not where your passion lies? Do you speak differently? And what do you think? If you've never been political, can you please be political here? I'd like to know who you voted for. I'd like to. So you can call
you're half
how
right.
we should vote in Ontario. Stand by.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming. You're half right. I mean, my records have been, I would say, a solid 70-30 mix of probably, love songs and the relationship stuff. And then 30% of it is like quiet kind of socio-political commentary that I slide in under the radar.
Sure. I'm trying to remember. Give me an example of the song.
Shades of Grey, Double Agent.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of.
So they're all, there's a song on this record called God Forbid, Heavy Lifting called God Forbid. There's a song on this, there's another song on this record called Special. They're all kind of, if not political, but sort of social commentary.
Social commentary, yeah.
My take on politics and music is this. I think for me, this goes back to people's expectations.
Yeah.
I think my politics are pretty obvious. And it's funny, I've talked to other musicians about this, and there are those people who feel really, that everybody has to know their opinion about everything, and they want to help you out and give you guidance, and it's very important to vote and on who to vote for. And then there are people who never talk about that stuff, and they don't want to talk about it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm here. And I think my politics are probably, I think you can probably tell just by looking at me what my politics are and about what I'm singing about. Mm-hmm. It's a really delicate balance because I'm of two minds. I'm very, 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 in my personal and sort of private life, I'm very, very passionate and very, very outspoken, and I have very, very strong opinions. I am also in my kind of, I don't care what people think era. So I'm kind of like, really? You think the earth is flat? Good for you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
God bless.
God bless. Right? I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not here to I'm not driving around with a bumper sticker on my car.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good luck. Right? And so I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. That is one aspect of social media. We were just talking about this a minute ago. That is one aspect of social media that drives me crazy because it's a really hard line to walk. On the one hand, you want to try to be helpful. And sometimes people feel that they're being helpful by telling everybody what their opinion is. On the other hand, are you really being helpful? Is anything going, are you really changing people's minds? I don't know. I personally have a very George Carlin take on
Lovely.
humanity,
You're
and I think
lovely.
it comes from, part of me is, to me, he was a guy, and I am very much like this. I think the most cynical and kind of misanthropic among us are those who have been the most heartbroken by the reality of the human condition, right? And it's so easy to kind of write off humanity, but secretly you're really rooting for people. It's the people who love people. George Carlin used to say, I love people.
Yeah.
I love people individually. It's when they get together in groups and they start to clot
They act stupid.
that I can't take it.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We gotta go because, like, I'm just saying, it's all hard over there. And I'm gonna stop recording this so Amanda can tell me what song she's gonna record after this. She's gonna whisper it right here. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Amanda, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Dismissed.